This trade is so crazy that it just might work. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. They're going to say, oh, that 2K ass trade, or, oh, you know nothing about basketball. But let's revisit August 2nd, 2005, where the Miami Heat were initiators in the largest trade in NBA history, a 5-team deal between the Heat, the Grizzlies, the Hornets, the Jazz, and the Celtics, in which Miami acquired Antoine Walker and Jason Williams, which of course helped them eventually land an NBA championship. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do in today's video. And actually, this trade that happened in 2005, that was with 13 players. Damn, that's crazy. 13 players. So that's actually bigger than the trade I'm about to show y'all. So don't tell me the trade is unrealistic. But all of that being said, even with all the context, people are probably still going to hate, which is fine. Everyone is certainly entitled to their own opinion. And most of the time I'm wrong. So I love to have that discussion and see the other perspectives. But don't direct your hate towards me. Direct it towards my guy, Alex Sheltman, at Alex Sheltman on Twitter, my boy from the basement, because this is actually his trade. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I definitely was hesitant at first. I'll put it that way, but he kind of talked me into it. So maybe I'll talk y'all into it today too. But here's the trade. The Miami Heat, ready for this? Make sure you're sitting down. The Miami Heat received Dejounte Murray, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Alex Caruso, and then the Atlanta Hawks get Terry Rozier, Jaime Jaquez, and the Heat's first round pick this year, number 15. The Chicago Bulls get Tyler Hero and 2 first-round picks from the 76ers. The Clippers get DeMar DeRozan via sign and trade. And the 76ers get Paul George. Now, I'm going to kind of go through each team and explain to you why I think they might say yes. So let me know along the way where you agree or disagree. Starting with the Miami Heat, they could put out, with this trade, they'd get Dejounte Murray, Bogdan, and Alex Caruso. They could put together a starting lineup of Dejounte Murray, Alex Caruso, Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jovic, and Bam Adebayo. That's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I don't want to hear anyone else say otherwise. That is a legit, perfectly well-rounded unit with offense and defense and just all of the above. I love it. And it would be a complete buy-in to the Heat culture. They would actually pick a direction and get a defensive backcourt, because we know Heat culture, toughest, nastiest, hardest working team in the league. It's that defensive toughness. But then the end last year, we had a starting backcourt of Terry Rozier, who I like defensively, actually. But Tyler Hero, we know he gets hunted. Duncan Robinson was better defensively last year, but he still gets hunted quite a bit when he was starting or just out there on the court in general. So now you'd be starting 2 guards who are very good on the defensive side of the ball, and you would never have to worry about getting hunted on again on the perimeter, which is so critical, because if you look at the guards in the East, Damian Lillard, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, just to name a few. It's very important to have these guards that can play defense, are great in that point of attack, and that is something that the Heat would have undoubtedly. Maybe the best defensive starting backcourt in the league. Now, the Heat would be losing a lot of offense because they are sending out Tyler and Terry and Jaime Jaquez, but the guys they're getting back can still score. Dejounte Murray scored 22 points a night last year with 6 assists and 5 rebounds. So he's very good at all 3 of those things. Had a lot of triple-doubles last year. People were concerned about his shooting, but he shot 36% on 7 attempts. That's high volume. And to knock him down at 36% rate, that's pretty good as well. And then he was obviously sharing the ball a lot with Trae Young. That's kind of the reason the Hawks would want to move on for them, one of them, because it didn't quite work. But in the games without Trae, where DeJounte Murray was like the lead point guard, in which I think he would also be on the Miami Heat, he averaged 25 and 9 assists. And that was in 28 games without Trae Young. So not a small sample size. So we know DeJounte Murray is a great perimeter defender. Not as good as he used to be, because I believe it was like the 2nd or 3rd year of his career. He made 2nd team all defense. But he's just been asked to do so much more on the offensive side that I don't think he's been able to contribute as much defensively. But on the Heat, he would be the point guard, but he really beat the 3rd best player. And DeJounte Murray's never really been the 3rd best player on a team since he, came into his own. Obviously, when he was young on the Spurs, those teams were very good. But kind of since he became the guy, he was the guy, and he was a number 2 in Atlanta. But in Miami, he can do what he does, shooting defensively or passing, but also he would be able to really hone in defensively because they would have guys like Jimmy and Bam there just to help him out so much on both sides of the ball. And he is a true point guard. The Heat haven't had a true point guard in a while. Terry Rozier can facilitate, but not as good as Dejounte Murray. I guess Kyle Lowry was kind of a facilitator, but he also sucked, so I don't count that. But also, the Miami Heat will be getting Alex Caruso, who only in 28 minutes a night last year averaged 10 points a game. So obviously he can still score. Got you 4 boards, 4 assists. So he's a guy that can facilitate a little bit as well. But I do think he would be better as a 2 guard, especially next to Dejounte. And he'd fit nice because he shot 41% from 3 on 5 attempts. That's excellent volume. And I think his career average is like 38. So, even if last year was just a high fluke, it's not too high from his career average, meaning I do think he can replicate that. And he is elite defensively. He was first team all defense 2 years ago, all defense second team just last year. So he was obviously a perfect fit. I think that's one thing that Heat fans can agree on is they would like Alex Caruso. There's not a lot Heat fans can agree on. I think that's one of them. Now, he is cheap. He's only getting paid like almost $10 million, but it would be a rental because he's on the last year of his contract, and he would likely walk in free agency and re-sign for more elsewhere. Now, the Heat would have his bird rights. That's a positive to this trade, so they could re-sign him over the cap, but he would likely leave after the season because they can't afford what he's going to command on the open market. But I'm fine with that because as a Heat team that's trying to win now and Jimmy Butler's window, I'm okay going all in next season, and getting Alex Caruso would allow them to do that. Plus, they're also, we're talking about scoring, they're getting Bogdan Bogdanovic. Do not sleep on him. 17 points a night last year, shot 8 threes, that's super high volume on 37%. He is an absolute bucket, and I think he'd be very nice as sort of a 6-man on this team, scoring the ball next to Duncan Robinson. So they would still have plenty of scoring in the starting lineup and a very nice scoring punch off the bench as well. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks here, they clearly need to move on. That whole experiment of Dejounte Murray and Trae Young doesn't work. I think one of those guys is a lock to get traded. The rest of the whales we talked about, like Lauri Markkanen, Donovan Mitchell, I don't know if those guys get moved, but I do feel comfortable saying one of those 2 Hawks backcourt guys will get moved. Now, you could say the Hawks could probably get more value for Dejounte Murray, but think about it like this. When they traded for Dejounte, they traded essentially 3 first-round picks and some small salary filler. If you look at this, they are getting 1 first-round pick outright. They're getting Jaime Jaquez, who is established and I think has a lot of potential to be a future star in this league. So he's better than an unknown first-round pick. Plus, the other Hawks building blocks is, I guess it'd be Trae Young and Jalen Johnson. Jaime Jaquez fits seamlessly in there as a guy that could play on and off ball, be a lob threat for Trae Young, be a very strong back, or I guess 2/3 of a front court with Jalen Johnson, because Johnson could certainly run the 4 at 6'9". He would fit great there. And then you're getting Terry Rozier, who doesn't make a lot of sense for the Hawks, but he's still a guy that on a relatively good contract, because it's only got 2 more years left, including next season, only $25 million. At the level he was playing before his neck injury last year, I think any team could easily recoup a first-round pick for Terry Rozier. You could send him to a contender and get a first-round pick back. So if the Hawks were to do that, they'd really be getting 2 first-round picks on Jaime Jaquez, and what they traded for Dejounte, it was 3 first-round picks. So they're essentially recouping their value and then some. And once you trade for a guy and it doesn't work and you try to trade him, usually you don't get the same value back. And in this case, they would be. So I do think this is a win for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, the Chicago Bulls have been hesitant to trade Alex Caruso. They said they want 3 firsts for him and then 2 firsts. I think he's personally worth a first. And in this trade, they are getting 2 firsts from Philly plus Tyler Hero. So the way I look at it is one of those firsts is essentially for Alex Caruso. And then what they're getting in the second first in Tyler Hero is value for DeMar DeRozan. Now, DeMar DeRozan is actually a free agent. So what he would be doing is doing a sign and trade with the Clippers. So essentially, instead of the Bulls losing DeRozan for nothing, they're actually getting some value for him and getting a first and Tyler Hero, who I think would be a nice building block on that team. There's some questions with his fit with Kobe White. I think Kobe White could play the 1 though and let Tyler Hero play the 2. I do think that this is great value for the Bulls, considering DeMar DeRozan could straight up leave and give them nothing. And he would have to do a sign and trade with the Clippers to kind of make the money work. And we'll talk about the next part of this in the next part of this video. But for the Bulls, they would also obviously, they likely are going to trade Zach LaVine. If they could get a first-round pick for him, now they're starting their rebuild with Tyler Hero and 3 first-round picks. I certainly don't think that's a bad start at all. Now, from a Heat fan perspective, though, I wonder if the Heat could swing for Nikola Vucevic. He's sort of a negative contract for the Bulls at this point. Should be easy to get. Duncan Robinson makes slightly less money, so I think they can make the money work there. Plus, since the Heat have Bogdan Bogdanovic, they don't need Duncan Robinson as much. And I know Vucevic is getting paid a ton, and the shooting has gone down, but he's still an elite rebounder. Obviously, that fits in Miami very well for what they need. And Duncan Robinson, they're both Vucevic and him have similar contracts, 2 more years, about 19 to 20 million. But Duncan Robinson has a player option next year. So theoretically, he could be an expiring contract this upcoming year. He might opt out because with the new TV deal, the salary cap's going to go up. And especially if Duncan Robinson was playing the same way or better than he was last season, he certainly could sign for more than $19 million. So obviously in that case, Duncan would opt out and re-sign for a big deal, whether with Chicago or elsewhere, to get his more money. The point is for the Bulls, they would be shedding a whole year of Vucevic's contract to really get their books completely open just a year from now. So I do think that could be an extra beneficial addition in this trade. Now moving on to the Los Angeles Clippers. They look like they don't want to extend PG. So that means they got to trade him, even though Paul George has a player option, but we're going to talk about that. I know the Clippers could likely get more value than DeMar DeRozan for Paul George, but that Clippers team is trying to win now. They just signed Kawhi Leonard to a monster extension. They're going into their new arena, and for obvious reasons, even including more than what I just mentioned, they want to win now. And I think DeMar DeRozan is the best player they could possibly get in a Paul George trade. Because if you're trading Paul George, you're trading him to a team that's trying to add Paul George to their core, like what the Sixers are doing with Embiid, Maxey, and PG. So it's very rare where you could sort of do a star-for-star swap, and that's what this trade would be. So from the Clippers' perspective, I know Paul George is better than DeMar DeRozan, but if you don't want to pay him, you don't want to extend him, DeMar DeRozan is probably the best replacement that you can get. And regardless of what they think of DeRozan, the Clippers kind of have to do this for salary cap purposes. They're currently $18 million above the second apron, and there is crazy ramifications of that. If y'all watched my video from 2 days ago with the Celtics are in salary cap hell, I explained more there. But essentially, you don't want to be over that second apron. And not only is the Clippers over, they're way over. They're about $18 million over the second apron. And for a team that lost in the first round, I can't justify that. I can't justify dealing with those ramifications. At least the Celtics are in the second round. They're about to win a damn NBA championship. The Clippers, they need to do something different here, and I could see why they don't want to extend Paul George either, because they just lost in the first round. And if they keep Paul George, they'll continue to be a second apron team, and I just can't justify that. Now, from the 76ers aspect here, they would essentially absorb Paul George into their cap space. Now, they would only send out 2 first-round picks. They don't care about that. They say that we got a core of, Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George, and don't have to give up any players. They don't care. They'd probably give up more than 2 first-round picks. This trade just has them sending out 2. So it's obvious why the Sixers would do this. But now Paul George, why would he agree to a sign and trade or opt in and trade with the Clippers when he could just straight up sign with the 76ers outright? Because he could decline his player option, sign with the 76ers. They would get him and keep their 2 first-round picks. That would make the most sense on the surface. But there's 2 reasons Paul George might not want to sign with the Sixers outright. Number 1, he could essentially extend with the Clippers now. He could get that max extension, but prior to that, they would agree that they would send him to Philly in this trade. It's kind of like a sign and trade. It's literally an extending trade, and that would allow Paul George to make almost another $10 million because the Clippers can pay him $221 over 4 years, and the 76ers could only pay him $212 over 4 years. So does Paul George care about that extra, 9 to 10 million? Maybe. I don't know. But that would be one reason he might want to extend with the Clippers and then get traded. Another reason, which is probably even better, is he could opt into his player deal, meaning he'd have 1 more year left on his contract. And then obviously before doing that, before opting in, agree with Philly to send him, or agree with the Clippers to send him to Philly as part of this trade. Now, he would make less money next year. He'd only make about $48 million compared to like the 54 he could make if he signed a new deal. But if he stays on his current contract next year, he would then be eligible to sign a monster 4-year deal the following season with Philadelphia. And that's the year where the new TV deal will be in place, meaning the salary cap will likely increase and Paul George can ask for a hell of a lot more money. And then also signing a 4-year deal next offseason would be, it put him at 39 years old by the time that contract ends and really allow him to optimize his final large deal. Kind of like what we're seeing with Jimmy Butler now, because they're both 34, but Jimmy Butler turns 35 in like September and Paul George just turned 34. So Jimmy is essentially a year older. That's why I'm saying Paul George could wait a year before doing this, and I really think that's the way that he could optimize his profits there. But anyways, I know I talked a lot, so let me know what y'all think down below. And if whatever you don't like, let me know what you would change. I get a lot of comments saying they don't like it, which is fine. I'm cool with that. But let me know why, so we can have a discussion. Let me know what you would sort of change there. But that's all I got to say, so make sure to like the video and subscribe, because I'm on the grind to hit 5K subs by the start of next season. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.